Welcome to Into the Night. I'm Nari, your guide on today's excursion down a twisted path. Be careful not to get lost. Be it dark or light, it's easy to lose your way. Are you ready? Then let's begin.
The garden. The gentle hum of the landing gear soothed Seth Langley's frayed nerves. Normally, he enjoyed his excursions. This time, he craved one. I never imagined I'd be so happy to get away from home. Seth winced at the thought. He loved Lori. He really did. The tensions between them had grown in recent months, and the pressures came from many sides. His job with the company occupied more time these days, and her parents nearly demanded that he and Lori pick up and move closer to them. Then there were their struggles with infertility. It's reached the point that we're trying too hard. Everything's become mechanical. We've lost intimacy. I can't enjoy time with Lori because I feel forced to perform. I'm not even sure I want to be a father. Yes, getting away for this field study came at a good time. He needed a chance to catch his breath. He loved Lori. He loved his job. And he even loved Phil and Doris, his in-laws. He just needed the chance to experience the beauty of the deep forest to rejuvenate his senses. The Cascade Mountains brought him a sense of well-being he could find nowhere else. The flight was smooth, and Seth had even allowed himself the guilty pleasure of a nap during the trip. Moments of relaxation were few and far between. As one of the leading scientific researchers in his field, he seldom took breaks. While most people never thought twice about where pharmaceutical discoveries came from, it was Seth's life. He specialized in the study of using natural elements in medications. The stigma created toward pharmaceuticals by the overuse of chemicals for decades gave rise to the Back to Nature movement that became his passion. Natural cures were for the taking if we would just look for them. That passion and drive brought Seth here today to the dense forest of the Cascade Range. He lovingly referred to the area as the garden. Seth believed the flora of the old forest held the cures to many diseases. He had 3 new medications nearing completion of the testing and approval stages, and all came from plants he'd discovered in the garden. As often as he could, he stole away to this botanical paradise. Simply being there healed Seth on so many levels. The company wanted easy access to the area, but, being environmentally conscious, developed a landing pad and a small research lab that blended into the area so well that no one noticed it unless they knew what to look for. The shuttle, now ready for its passengers and crew to disembark, slid into the hangar. The doors closed behind the vehicle, and the team quickly made its way to the lab. Safely past the airlock, Seth slipped out of his travel clothes and into the required biosuit. His skin condition required extra protection from the increased UV rays. Thin mountain air and the elevation of the range blocked fewer of those rays than the atmosphere found at sea level. Seth grimaced as he remembered the time he hadn't worn his biosuit. Never again. His company spared no cost to protect its rising star researcher. The suit was clumsy, but once in the woods, Seth forgot his discomfort. He was the only team member allowed to venture into the forest. The rest stayed behind to analyze his samples and to record data. His walks in the woods, while not without risks, were his own. Seth relished them. Biosuit safely on, Seth motioned to the staff member in the bubble, more formally known as the control unit. The door slid open, and Seth plodded out the front of the building into the bright sunlight. Birds sang, and small animals scampered through the undergrowth. He had no fear of the raccoons, deer, and other small creatures he encountered. Other larger animals were the threat. Seth carried no weapons, and a few times one would have come in handy. His suit, covered in a material resembling fur, protected him from the UV rays, but it masked his resemblance as a person enough that some predators mistook him as either prey or competition. It was a risk he willingly took, even though it could be a fatal one. Pushing any lingering fears from his mind, Seth emerged into the forest. His heart swelled with joy. This is what I've needed. Immediately, he took the trail down to the first plant plot he cultivated. A particular strain of sword ferns held promise to help the blind. Seth's college roommate was blind, so this study was close to Seth's heart. He carefully measured and recorded the plants, collecting samples and putting them in the various velcroed pockets covering his biosuit. Yes, they made the suit bulky, but they freed Seth's hands. It was a worthwhile trade-off. He hiked to the next grove of deciduous larch that Seth believed contained an ingredient that would reverse a rare but devastating degenerative nerve disease. As he climbed higher, he stopped along the way, measuring, documenting, and collecting various flora. Some new species to study grew wild. If they held potential benefits, he'd return to create plots for those as well. Then he heard it. It wasn't a bear, although those did prowl the mountains. It wasn't a cougar either. Seth's blood ran cold when he realized he was being trailed, stalked, by a more dangerous predator. Quickly, taking long strides down the mountain trail, Seth bounded for the safety of his laboratory. He tripped and stumbled, nearly sliding down an embankment. The racing footsteps of his enemy approached, and Seth knew he must hurry. The fall injured his knee and aggravated an old back injury, causing him to stoop and hobble as he ran. His friends would have laughed at the sight he made, but this was no laughing matter. For a moment, he paused to catch his breath. The high elevation made it difficult for him to run far, even with the aid of the emergency oxygen packs built into the biosuit. Have I lost them? No sooner had the thought crossed his mind, Seth had his answer. No, he had not lost them. His short rest allowed the predators to gain ground on him. 200 yards separated him from the safety of the concealed lab opening. Could he make it? I have to make a break for it and keep my head together. I can't afford another fall. God, how I wish I could tell Lori I love her, that more than anything, I want a baby with her. I've been an idiot, hiding behind work. I'll make it up to her when I get home. Right now, I have to make sure I get home. Mentally plotting his course through the forest, Seth took off on a run. His pursuers yipped behind him, their high-pitched yells and howls searing Seth's eardrums. Then the unmistakable crack of a rifle and the whizzing of a bullet as it sailed past the back of Seth's head caused him to panic. He'd never had that happen before. In these encounters, he'd merely been chased. Now, he was hunted. 50 yards. 25 yards. Seth's lungs felt as though they would burst, but another volley of bullets drove him to push harder. At the entrance of the cave-like opening, Seth slammed his hand on the emergency button. The door slid open, and he flung himself onto the cold concrete floor as a bullet ricocheted off the door as it slid closed. Damn, that was close. Maybe I need to carry a weapon after all. Teammates rushed to his side and peeled him out of his biosuit, whisking him away to the on-site doctor. Seth, still in shock from the ordeal, had one thought. I just want to get off this planet and get home to Lori. Outside, his pursuers scrambled to the mouth of the cave. He's got to be somewhere. He can't have gone far. His companion, leaning over, breathless with his hands on his knees, nodded. Dave, can you believe that? We almost bagged ourselves a Bigfoot. Kicking the ground, Dave took his frustrations out on a bracken fern. We sure did. Let's look around for a blood trail. There's no way he disappeared into thin air. Given the events of the morning, the team decided to concentrate on experiments within the lab. The forest would wait for their next trip to Earth.
Thank you for joining me for Into the Night, an anthology series written by Caroline Giammanco, narrated and produced by Nari Kwak, with music created by Alex Sexton. You can find our links in the description below. Into the Night is available on your favorite podcast directory, so be sure to subscribe and follow so you never miss an episode. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review, as it really does help new excursionists to find their way here. Share with any of your friends who you think would like to join us. Also, stop by and say hi sometime. We're on Twitter at Into the Night Pod or by email at itnanthology@gmail.com. I'll see you next time. And remember, whether in the shadows or in the daylight, all twisted paths take you into the night.